C, which is consequences. In fact, each one should be studied differently. That is the unique thing in this topic. Okay, causes and consequences. Hello, just started. Okay, causes, consequences, and then the next one is cures. Cures to macro problems. Okay. And after cures, okay, there's another C, which is conflicts between macro goals. Conflicts between macro goals. We also have context, in the sense we need to have some understanding of the Singapore economy. We are small and open, we are import reliant, we are export driven, we don't use an interest rate policy. Okay, the last C I cannot really address within a crash session. The last C is more of current themes. Okay, so this is more something we go through when we run through past year questions. Okay, so current themes, which will still leverage on your earlier C's. Okay, involve themes like deflation, stagflation, productivity, COVID, trade war. Okay, I can spend a theme, but today we want to go through the framework. Okay, for the rest. All right. So many C's. Okay, the only thing that's not a C will be your grades after you go through all this. A. Okay. So if you look at all the C's here, how do you study for it? I thought, how to do this, and I think the most intuitive way is to go from the essay perspective. Why? This whole week we are talking a lot about essays. The moment you know how to study well for essays, case study is just a more granular form with lower weightage. You can still leverage on your same understanding to answer these things. Okay? So today's lesson will involve frameworks for you to use, certain mini exercises for you to do at home to train your understanding. Okay, this is a very big topic. You spend the most amount of time on this topic. Okay, so in microecons, market structure is the big one. In macroecons, this is it. Okay, and if you are looking at the various C's, I think we'll start with the first one. Okay, so how to study? Yeah, I will tell you the first one, how to study. Okay, causes of macro problems. Okay, done copying? Yeah, okay, good. So the next one is, when you think of causes of macro problems, I think I'll start from the most direct perspective, which is, what do you do if this is in part A of an essay? Then later I'll tell you what to do if this is part B. Okay? If this is part A, you need to know something. Level 3 criteria. Level 3 criteria from Monday all the way until today, 5 days already, has not changed. From DDSS to market failure, market structure, national income, and this, and next Monday's international econs, it stays the same. It's 2 parts, content and context. It will never change. Okay. So when we talk about content, aka rigor, aka what you do before the test, memory word lah, okay, is a sum of 4 parts. D, D, E, E. Okay. Definition. You need to know your definitions, diagram, explanation, as well as examples. Okay, right from the days of demand and supply. Okay, we have not shifted the goalposts. It's always remained the same. 2Ds and 2Ds. Okay, so what is this telling us? Well, this is telling us when you are studying macro aims and issues, okay, no choice. You just need to be very familiar with definitions of each goal, on each problem, and the subsets. So I see some students who are still trying to bash their way through in their own words. And on definitions, let's be precise. So I'm thinking of things like, if there's a question on inflation, you can expect to define, oh, inflation is a sustained increase in the general price level. And the subset, demand pull inflation, happens when AD rises while the economy is approaching full employment. Cost push inflation is a rise in cost of production independent of AD. So you need to understand, you need to memorize the definition of each goal and the subset. Okay, sorry, I don't mean goal macro, goal problem. Okay, So recession, 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. Well, in my guidebook, I have a list of key definitions preceding each topic. You can flick through it. The small book you have. Okay? So definitions, no choice. It's the same. DDSS, you define, sometimes you define demand and supply. More often, you define PED, PES, YED, cross elasticity, right? Market failure, you define market failure, public goods, non-rivalry, non-exclusivity, nothing has changed. Okay? You need to know how to draw your diagrams featuring this one. Okay? I feel that this topic diagram was not a problem and will not be a problem in the foreseeable future. Like demand and supply, diagram is not a problem. Even price, price floor, you could draw it. Diagram tended to be a problem in market structure. You shift your revenue curves, you shift your cost curve, you forget where's your profits already. Diagram can be a problem in market failure, as I shared 2 days back. If I ask you for the effects of a tax or a subsidy on externalities, no problem. If I ask you for effect of campaigns, some people do not know they have to shift MPP. If I ask you for the effect of, let's say, widening a highway to reduce congestion, oh, some people didn't know you shift your MSC downwards because your MEC becomes smaller. So for market failure, they know where students will struggle with the diagrams. Okay, even free provision, then some people don't know how to draw. So they will get to that. Okay, but in today's topic, diagram not an issue. Okay, not an issue to the extent, sometimes I even see students doing this, which is wonderful. I call this the all things good diagram. In an effort to save time, I see you shifting AD, SRAS, LRAS together. Can anyone give me an instance when this happens? When all curves shift, all things good. One of you mentioned supply side policy. Well, very good. Supply side policy that raises productivity. Okay? Productivity will increase the quality of labor, improve the quality of labor. LRAS shift to the right. Quality of labor. That's why I say this is one theme that we go through. Productivity raises investor confidence. Why do you think Dyson wanted to come to Singapore? Not because we are cheap, no? Okay. Productivity raises confidence, AD shifts to the right. Productivity can also lower cost of production, assuming your wages rise at a slower rate. Okay. So this just demonstrates how comfortable we are with the diagram. If it's COVID, all things bad, and you try to make yourself. Okay? So diagrams, no issue. Explanation, I see some lack of preparation here. Okay? Whenever we explain, we always explain 2 things to get a lot of rigor. The shifts in your diagram. There is rigor. When I say rigor, it's memorized, right? So when do you get a shift in the diagram and you have to explain it? Remember the ESS, price adjustment process, or what you call it, market adjustment process. PAP or MAP is the same, right? After the shift, upward pressure on price, as price goes up, yada, yada, yada. Market structure. When you shift, you have to explain profit driven. You produce where MC cuts and mark. Okay, hello. Then you talk about, oh, at this output, this is revenue, this is cost, this is profits. Okay. Well, in this case, you have to explain your shifts. You have to explain how a change in AD affects real GDP. What do you think is the rigor over there? I give you a clue, it starts with M, and it's something you probably see in math. Multiplier. Okay, math, you don't multiply. I was just thinking of multiple. Okay, so this is usually your succinct K Well, yesterday I told you when to use a full K, right? When the question is about circular flow. Okay. Do you know if you're trying to explain demand pull inflation, the focus is somewhat different? If you are trying to explain growth, unemployment drops, okay, you talk about succinct K. But if you're trying to explain GPL, demand pull inflation, can you all tell me some keywords that should accompany your diagram, like this one? Are we seriously focusing on multiplier? No, because multiplier assumes existence of pair capacity, which is not here. So what are some keywords? Yeah. Very good. Assuming is near full employment, or some notes use the word supply bottlenecks. Any more? If you're near full employment, there will be higher competition. Okay, higher competition for limited FOP, so you have higher COP. At the same time, there will be higher competition for goods and services, therefore higher general price level. Okay, then you go on to say higher COP is hence passed on as higher price. Later I'll show you where to memorize. You need to know how to explain this, or how to explain your change in SRAS, your change in LRAS, depending on whether you're trying to link it to output or to price. Gotta memorize. Okay. So in the whole econ syllabus, don't neglect what you have to explain when it comes to your shifts in the diagrams. Okay. Some of you are from the Wednesday session. Okay. Just to give you a quick look at what we'll be doing during this weekend's class for the regular class students. Just a quick look. On Wednesday, what I went through with them was just to give you a sense of the rigor. And I said this year, we're going to see many questions where you have two policies. And you're asked to discuss which is the best policy. So to hone your writing skills, I will break down the structure into a few things. Your diagram, your explanation of the diagram, and your pros and cons. Okay, so those who are coming for the weekend class tomorrow and Sunday, we will be working through specific rigor for different parts. Okay, like market failure, how to explain the workings of a text using this thing called SINA, S-I-N. Okay, but just to demonstrate that things don't change across the topics. Okay, so you have to explain shifts. This one requires rigor. You also have to explain your factors with rigor, especially factors affecting AD. You may say, why not AS? AS not much to explain. Higher quality of labor, productive capacity goes up, people can produce more. That's it. But factors affecting AD, you can be sure examiners are looking at your explanation like a hawk. Let's say there's a fall in income tax, and I want to tie it to higher C. Keyword or key term? What should I say? Higher? Think of a dustbin. Very good. Disposable income. Okay? Lower corporate tax. Higher I. Or is it? Some people say lower cost of production. Wrong. We say higher post-tax profitability or profits. Lower interest rates resulting in higher C. This one you all should know. Cheaper to borrow to buy. Big ticket items. Okay? They're all summarized somewhere. Okay? Blah, blah, blah. Okay? So before you embark on this journey to practice questions, make sure you have memorized the rigor here. Otherwise, it's very hollow. Very hollow in the sense, if you're playing a certain sport, you know the skills, you know the strokes, but you don't train up. You don't even have the explosive power, how to win. Okay? Last one, examples, just means let's be very prepared with examples of what can cause different macro problems. When I say what can cause different macro problems, I am actually saying something. 80% of your macro problems are from ADAS factors. Very bold assertion. 80% of them came from AD and AS. Which means 20% you don't see on the diagram. You'll never draw a diagram for that 20%. So what's in that 20%? What is not there? Structural and frictional unemployment. Forget the diagram. Okay, that one has no diagram at all. The other one, balance of trade. Some schools still talk about balance of payment. Okay, but balance of trade, no diagram. Don't draw it. Okay, 80% come from AD and AS. Let's prove it. AD. When it's too high, what's your problem? AD is too high, why is it not good? We call it demand pool, right? Demand pool inflation, very good. Demand pool inflation. When it's too low, you can see it as three different things. Low actual growth, even the recession. Okay? High cyclical unemployment. You can even associate this with inflation. That really captures 4 goals in some sense. Okay. AS, short run, long run. Short run AS affects cost push, inflation, as well as actual growth. Long run AS is about potential growth. You can even tie it to demand pool inflation. How potential growth brings down demand pool inflation a bit precious. So this is why I say 80% of your macro problems are from AD and AS. You try that, you go through each problem and the root causes, they should be accounted here. I wanted to say this because maybe earlier on, when I told you, wow, you need the rigor, you need the diagrams, some of you feel very sian already. Like there's so much to study. But actually what I'm also saying now is that there's a lot of overlap. Okay, just take a look at my guidebook. Okay, I'll show you the guidebook in a bit. You copy down first. If you look at page 124 of the guidebook, no need to flip if it's not with you or very hard to get. But I just want to show you page 124. This guidebook shows you summarized content, whereas the console notes show you writing skills. Can you see causes of inflation? Demand pool is what? CGI X minus M. And I use an acronym, I call that ICE peak. Yeah. Okay. These are the factors that affect AD. Because if you have factors for DDSS in microecons, why not come up with acronyms for these factors in macroecons? So I have ICE peak. You see the same ICE peak appear under inflation and economic growth, as well as unemployment, which means this dotted box cuts through 3 goals, which means as long as you know your factors affecting AD, you have already studied the reasons for demand pool inflation, actual growth, cyclical unemployment. Don't study 3 times because the notes will give you 1 set per goal. Then you think they are unique. But this overview is very clear. It's the same thing appearing 3 times. Okay? Like class photo, you appear 3 times in 3 different photos. It's the same you. Right? So don't feel that, oh, there's so much to study. Just learning about eye size peak already helps you cover these things, even deflation. Okay. So this is contact. Any questions? If you understand AD and AS, which I mentioned yesterday also, okay, you would have understood 80% of your root causes. That's a wonderful thing. Okay. But if only life was so simple, if they only test us on content, memorize stuff, oh, definition, diagram, shifting of the curves, things will be wonderful. But there is also context. Whenever there's a question on causes of macro problems, look out for PTSD. Okay? Look out for events in the preamble. Like demand and supply questions. If they mention something in the preamble, you have to use it in your answer. It becomes a root cause. Look out for trend. Look out for Singapore context. And then look out for domestic versus external factors. Yes, I'll give you some examples. Okay. So to do well for questions on causes, which by the way are very common, DDE, PTSD, and should be fine. Okay. Okay, let me just show you some examples, or I'll just walk through a very simple example. Okay. But before I move on, any questions? No, okay. So, example of a question on causes. If I have part A, and I'm asked to explain the main causes of inflation in an economy, 10 marks. I will likely have an introduction where I'll say inflation is sustained increase in the general price level, and inflation can be demand pull or cost push. That's all for the intro. You want to define demand pull, cost push? Go ahead. Okay. Next paragraph, we call it R1, or some of your schools call it KR1, key requirement 1. You will probably want to say demand pull inflation occurs when AD rises while economy is near full employment. So what happens when you have a paragraph? Okay, I have the definition. I ought to put in my diagram. Label lah. Okay, I'm just skipping the labels to save time. You cannot do that. Okay. Then you have to explain with examples. So I would say, for example, if there is a fall in interest rates, C rises because it's cheaper to borrow to buy big ticket items. I rises because assume all these are rehearsed. Expected returns stay the same. Your expected profitability from investments rises. So some notes will say using MEI, more projects appear profitable now. So can you see in terms of explanation, I have explained my factor with rigor, which is all memorized. And I am also going to explain my diagram with rigor, using words like supply bottlenecks. Later, I'll show you where you can find all these, okay? Competition for FOP, competition for the goods and services, blah, blah, blah. If time permits, you can mention the multiplier process first. If time permits. If time doesn't allow, it's better to focus on what's happening on the y-axis. Okay. This probably takes up 1/3 of a page. If your diagram is big, half a page. R2, cost push inflation occurs when COP rises independent of AD. Then you do your same TDE. Okay, and you conclude. It cannot be more straightforward, right? So conclusion, inflation can be from either cause. And which one ultimately still depends on nature and state of economy. Okay. So which one is more prevalent? Depending on nature and state. If I'm near full employment, demand pool is more relevant. If I'm in the recession, I don't think it's demand pool. That is state. Okay. This essay probably takes up about 1 1/3 of a page. That big diagrams, 1.5 pages. Then why are examiners still asking something so obvious? Two reasons. There are a lot of conceptual mistakes that can be made here. Possible mistakes. Because if people don't make mistakes, they shouldn't be asking anymore. Okay? One mistake is also not studying. Okay, but possible mistake, which I saw in the last Thursday's test. Not identifying a root cause. When the question is asking for causes, you cannot just say, oh, assume AD went up. If you just say, assume AD rise, there's demand pull inflation, they will circle this and ask you, why? Give an example. Okay? So if you miss out this part, okay, that means they are asking you for examples. This example part is faulty. Okay, one of you asked about context. Yes, I'll bring in context soon because it's very important. Context is important. Okay, so it's a good reminder. Context has to come in. First one, not identifying a root cause. Or if you say, oh, cost push inflation rises, and you don't give an example, not good enough. You know, even if you say, okay, if you say, assume AD rises, okay, or even if you just assume there's higher C, okay, because of higher expectations, they have the right to still say why. So how do you know that you have a root cause? Ideally, you have specified a certain event. Like, if you want to say better expectations, relaxation of COVID lockdowns, relaxation of pandemic measures. This is very standard time. Okay. Okay. Or if you were to assume there's higher price of imports, therefore we have cost push inflation, I can still ask you why. So what can you propose as your example? War in Europe. Gas prices go up. Okay. War in Europe. Higher energy prices. Okay. So recently some of you have been asking, hey, my teacher says we need examples. To what extent should we bring in examples? Well, today I'm going to share with you exactly when examples are needed. Okay. Preferably an event. And that give them nothing to fault. Okay. So this is a very straightforward question. I've just gone through mistake number 1. Second mistake, see whether you can spot this. The second mistake is linking a rise in C to a rise in income due to economic growth or a change in employment. Why is that a mistake? So first one, not identifying a root cause. This is this mistake. Do you all know why this is a mistake? I thought income affects consumption. Economic growth affects income. Employment affects income. So what is wrong? One of you put in a word in Zoom. You said induce. Exactly. You see, this is induced consumption. If it's induced consumption, it cannot be the root cause. The root cause must be something that changes autonomous spending. Induced consumption cannot, no go. But who is not sure why that's induced consumption? Raise your questions freely, because I want to address everything, okay? Every kink, every gap, we deal with it. So anyone? Like, what is this induced consumption? Oh, we are generally okay? Okay. If you're not sure, you just go and revise your multiplier process. The second round, the third round, the fourth round, the fifth round, every subsequent round is induced. In the multiplier process, induced consumption happens when firms produce more. And that's higher GDP, economic growth. When firms want to produce more, they hire more people. That is change in employment. Therefore, income went up. If I can make this very, very explicit, okay, I will do this. They realize, wow, you cannot copy this down because I can cut and paste, you can't, okay? Never mind. You can just take note of this when I send you the notes, okay? If I look at what affects consumption, okay, there's income. Income can change due to a change in economic growth or a change in employment. Income, maybe you don't say disposable, it's okay lah. Just say income lah, okay? Income can also change due to a change in income tax, a change in welfare payouts, a change in minimum wage rules, right? Which is government. So if I look at the whole list, and this is exchange rates, inflation rates. Okay. Autonomous, I shall call it A. induce, I shall call it I. This is induced spending. This is autonomous. This is autonomous. This is autonomous. Autonomous all the way. This visual should make it very clear. You can highlight all the ones marked with an A, just don't choose the one with an I as your root cause. Sure to lose marks. Okay. Questions? Okay. So that's your possible mistake. Number 2. I have 2 more points. So this is just to iron out some kinks in the understanding. Okay. The third mistake, okay, is when you shift AD while explaining a factor that is supposed to cause a movement in AD instead. And that is a problem. You explain a factor that moves your, is causing a movement along the AD. So I shouldn't say in AD, along the AD curve. You know what's a shift, you know what's a movement from the days of DDSS, right? So what causes a movement? A movement is when AD stays the same, but AS changes. This is a movement. How many of you have heard of income effect, substitution effect, interest rate effect? You know what that is? Those effects are the 3 effects. Income effect, international substitution effect, interest rate effects are not officially in the syllabus. Okay, but some of the notes cover it. Those 3 points explain why AD is downward sloping. Income, international substitution, and interest rate effect. These effects basically explains why AD slopes downwards. You will never get a question asking you why AD slopes downwards, but some of you have a habit of wording this into your rehearsed explanation because the school asked for it. I'm fine with that. Although, just be aware, other schools don't do this. So if you're rushing for time, you can drop it. Okay? So, why AD slopes downwards? The most famous one is your international substitution effect. Okay? So if you're, sorry, this is P1, P2. Okay, this is Y1, Y2, real GDP. Let's say you look at international substitution effect. This means if inflation rate falls relative to other countries, a fall in GPL is a fall in inflation, right? So if my inflation falls relative to other countries, my exports become more price competitive. I sell more exports, higher AD. Yes? I'm just gonna slow down, just in case you don't catch it. Any questions here? Might have come across this. Then some people say higher X, higher AD must be a shift. No, it is not. Why? In the world of TDSS, you always check, you will check whether it's a shift or a movement by looking at what was the trigger event. In this case, the trigger event is a fall in inflation. It's a y-axis thing. So instead of shifting AD, you should be shifting your SRAS. because a change in SRAS is that change you are describing here is a change in cost push inflation. Otherwise, why would inflation change? Is it demand pull? We don't really go into those. Wow, there's demand pull, then AD will fall. We don't go into second round impacts. So this is your SRAS changing, causing your X and your AD to rise. But it's a movement along AD, not a shift. Ask me questions. Huh? So in your answer, if they ask you,